this is the way other people do it, and therefore this is how we should be doing it too.
Right.
I've obviously never thought in those terms because I've always wanted to, I guess, break the mold or find a way to do what hasn't been done before. And I suffer it a lot in business because, people who've come from particularly bigger organisations, very, very much like to say, well, that's how they do it. So we should be doing it too. Whereas 9 times out of 10, the people who you're looking at aren't actually achieving an outcome that you want anyway. It's just how they've been doing it. And what we need to do is break it back down to its beginning principles and find a way to get what we want. Well, that is a nice segue into what I was going to have as our first question from things that you've historically said, actually. So
yeah.
I heard this quote from the well-known podcast, the Matt Haycox Show.
Nice.
You said last time we spoke,
yeah.
just because someone hasn't done something doesn't mean it can't be done. And this resonated with me as well, because I suffer from people in business a lot, kind of almost like turning that the other way around, basically saying this is the way other people do it, and therefore this is how we should be doing it too.
Right.
I've obviously never thought in those terms because I've always wanted to, I guess, break the mold or find a way to do what hasn't been done before. And it was only over the last few months that I'd actually come across the concept of, well, not the concept, but the definition of first principles thinking. And I started to read a bit deeper into that. And and I guess being a new father again, I'm going to be looking forward to hearing why.
Right.
And for anyone listening to this, who doesn't know what first principles thinking is, it's effectively you're breaking everything down to the earliest stages. And kids are the prime example, because they'll go, why are we wearing that today? Oh, well, because we're going to at the office. But why do we have to wear a suit in the office? Well, because we're supposed to be smart in the office. But why? And then ultimately, most of these things, you tend to hit a point where it's, well, just because that's what we've always fucking done, you put your cutlery like that, or eat your food, whatever it may be. And I suffer it a lot in business because people who've come from particularly bigger organisations, very, very much like to say, well, that's how they do it. So we should be doing it too. Whereas 9 times out of 10, the people who you're looking at aren't actually achieving an outcome that you want anyway. It's just how they've been doing it. And what we need to do is break it back down to its beginning principles and find a way to get what we want. So I mean, you were effectively saying the same thing, but in an opposite way, because you're trying to achieve things that other people haven't done. And particularly, I know when you did the Yangtze thing, someone had tried to do it, and he this was not just a someone, this was, I think, from memory, like an ex-military guy, a Navy SEAL, a very experienced explorer. And not only had he tried to do it, he'd failed 3 times, he'd been evacuated, but that wasn't enough to put you off. Just because he hadn't done it didn't mean there wasn't a way for you to find a way. So I think it was a very important quote.
Definitely.
And I just want to dig a bit deeper on that, because it applies so much to business and life in general.
Yeah, so I remember that clearly, and I remember it really getting me down, because I did have massive doubt. And this was Mongolia, so it was the desert that I was going to cross. And this guy, not only was he a Navy soldier, but he was a desert explorer, and I was your sort of beach bum living on an island, fighter, scuba diver, 22, no military background, and had never been to a desert before. I was living on an island, and so I think with that and the list that he sent me of all the different challenges, he dropped me a note, the guy directly who had attempted 3 times, and it was, incredible is the ability to continue no matter what. And that quote terrified me. I didn't know what he meant by that. It didn't make sense to me. I was there out thinking maybe that's his polite way of saying you don't stand a chicken's chance, or maybe he's rooting for me and he's saying you've got to do something incredible to get through the hurdles that I face. I didn't know. And then when I started to speak to more people, and sort of they were putting more doubts and fears into my head, saying it's impossible. Experienced people as well, people who were local to the country.
What did that guy say to you? You're nuts, don't do it.
He didn't. He said, look out for the dangers, and then left that incredible as the abilities to continue no matter what. But the dangers were sort of like drunken nomadic drifters, grey walls, stagnant water, dry wells, snow blizzards, sandstorms, and it was a big list. And it did put me off.
Did you ask him why he never tried a 4th time?
I didn't ask, but I think he suffered psychologically. I think he was out there, and it's just his mind, and then the dehydration on top of it. The desert just does something to your mindset when you're out there, and you've got to stay strong and remember your why, which again is great for business, right? In business, you're dealing with a lot of money, you're dealing with a lot of people, a lot of sort of decision makers, and there's big risks involved, and it's easy to just sort of bail out when you could be so close to achieving something great. I watched I don't know the name of it. It's the Nike. Have you seen the new movie on Netflix? It's about Nike and how Nike is brand new this year, made a decision and took a huge gamble, because it was Nike third place, Converse, and then Adidas. And Nike were trying to be the top dogs for footwear, but Nike at that point were just laughed at. It was like, you can't compete with Adidas and Converse. And they had this vision of trying to get Michael Jordan on board. And Michael Jordan wasn't anything special then. He was just sort of, this guy was a headhunter, and he could see something in Michael Jordan. So he took a risk, and he spent all of the budget that they had, which was $250,000. And they normally split that amongst 3 players. And the 3 players that they had left, because Adidas and Converse snapped all the good ones up, weren't that great. So he said, look, there's a guy that's showing big talent. Let's invest all the money in him. And the boss was like, no, we can't do that. It's ridiculous. And like everyone was laughing, WME management laughing at him. And they ended up going ahead. And Michael Jordan said no, because why would he accept the same deal? And so what they ended up doing is giving him an allocated percentage, which was the first time that was ever done from business to athlete, of footwear ever sold. I think he got 1%, and we will create your own line and call them Air Jordans. And he agreed to that. And within that first year, they were hoping to make $3 million. They went on to make $400 million.
I'll have to Google this and watch this later.
Check it out. I watched it the other night, and I was like, wow, talk about business and taking risks. And that just jumped them right up. And right now they make $4 billion a year on just that line, just Air Jordan line, still to this day.